Coming into the season, NBA fans as a whole had a pretty good idea of which teams were expected to compete for a playoff spot, which teams were tanking, and which teams were stuck in the middle. The thing about NBA basketball, though, is that very few things are actually that predictable, and the way things shake out typically differs a lot compared to what was expected. Sometimes this happens in a pleasantly surprising way, where teams that were written off overcome the odds and outperform all expectations, but for the Philadelphia 76ers, they find themselves on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and that brings us to today's video. The 76ers entered the season expected to compete with the best of the best after a fairly active offseason, and yet now, 3/4 of the way through the year, we're seeing everything that could have gone wrong for them is going wrong. Their future is now as murky as it's ever been, and only one thing can possibly save them, which is exactly what we'll be getting into in this video. Before we start though, I want to let you all know about a fantastic opportunity that I'm very excited to bring to your attention. I've partnered with XCLSV to bring you the opportunity to attend a Philadelphia 76ers game in a suite, completely for free. I'm talking VIP hospitality, in-suite catering of food and beverages, premium seating, and entertainment all included for free when you go to the link in the description of this video and sign up. The only thing asked of you in return is to come an hour before the game to check out a few of our clients' apps and play a game on 3 of them with one of our ambassadors. Then you're good to go. We're hosting this suite for 5 games from now through the end of March, so if you're in Philadelphia or the surrounding area, then go down to the link in the description and submit your survey to see if you qualify, and if you do, then I will be seeing you at the game. Once again, thank you to XCLSV. Now let's get back to the video. So as I mentioned in the intro, the Sixers were pretty active in the offseason, and every move they made was intended to bolster the squad in order to gear up for a run at the top of the Eastern Conference. Paul George was the biggest name available in free agency this offseason, coming off of an all-star year, and is a guy who has had a long career playing at a level that matches the best two-way wings in the league. He's always been an efficient shooter, he's been a smooth on-ball creator off the dribble, he's been a reliable catch-and-shoot guy, so he hasn't always needed the ball in his hands to be impactful, and on paper, his fit was flawless on this roster. The Sixers also went out and signed Caleb Martin away from the Miami Heat after playing hero in their last run to the NBA Finals, so he was a proven playoff acumen. They brought in longtime veteran sharpshooter Eric Gordon and rebounding force Andre Drummond to give them some experience off the bench. They drafted Jared McCain in the first round, who early on was looking like the best player in the entire draft class. They signed Gershon Yabusele, who previously flamed out of the NBA, but after a dominant season overseas and a fantastic showing at the Olympics for France, he was ready for a return and has looked outstanding since his return to the NBA. And they also gave both Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey contract extensions, locking in their 2 leading men. All of that probably sounds pretty exceptional to you after hearing me say it out loud like that, yet somehow the basketball gods just decided that nothing was meant to be as it seemed, and something has gone wrong with every single move that I just mentioned. Paul George has always been injury prone, but this year just so happens to be the year that it's all catching up to him, with nagging knee pain hampering him so much to the point that he's pretty much on the injury report before every game as a game time decision. That, combined with the fact that he just cashed in his last big payday, and the fact that he now runs a podcast throughout the season, is reasonably leaving people asking the question of whether he's even fully focused on the game of basketball anymore, or whether he's just at the point where he's satisfied with cashing checks and focusing on the next part of his life. Not counting the 2015 season where he only played 6 games in limited fashion due to injury, he's averaging his fewest points per game since 2012 this year, and he's nowhere close to the efficiency levels that he was at just last year. He's being paid like a star game changer, but performs like a role player who negatively impacts the game in key moments, and the craziest part is that he's only one small piece of the puzzle resulting in the Sixers' season from hell this year. Jared McCain was one of the few bright lights on this team early in the year, emerging as the runaway favorite to win the Rookie of the Year award, scoring 20 or more points in 7 straight games, and shooting the lights out while providing a pleasantly surprising source of playmaking. But he tore his meniscus and opted for surgery, ending his rookie campaign back in December. Impact metrics show that the Sixers perform worse with Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond, and Caleb Martin on the court individually, so all of those signings ended up being flops, and Caleb Martin ended up being traded away at the trade deadline. Tyrese Maxey has been thrust into much more of a number one role on offense with all of the injuries and inconsistency around him, and the fact of the matter is that he has not handled the lead responsibilities that well. One of the biggest appeals to Maxey's game in previous years has been the fact that he can use his blisteringly fast speed, perimeter shooting, and aggressive driving skills at the basket to score the ball efficiently inside and out, as he was one of the most efficient volume scorers just last year and especially 2 years ago. But this year, as the go-to guy most nights, he's getting more attention from defenses, and his efficiency is suffering, shooting just 43% from the field and 33% from 3, which are both below average marks league-wide. Maxey is best suited in a sidekick role where he can punish defenses that overplay the number one guy next to him, which leads me to the biggest factor of all, the status of Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid was having the best season of his career last year, which also happened to be one of the greatest scoring seasons the league had ever seen, and was on track to win his second MVP award, but then things came crashing down in January when he tore his meniscus, and ever since, he has been a shell of his former self. The story of Joel Embiid's career is that his body is breaking down on him. He then tries to play through the injuries that he suffers, his play gets hampered as a result of those injuries, and ultimately, the strain of playing through injury adds up to a gradual weakening of those injured body parts. Embiid rushed back from that torn meniscus last year instead of immediately getting surgery. He played on it in the playoffs against the Knicks, and admittedly played pretty well, leading the first round of the playoffs in scoring total in the whole NBA, plus he put up a career-high 50 points in one of the games in that series, but he was still very clearly hobbled and nowhere close to 100% in that series. He then played at the Olympics for Team USA in a once-in-a-lifetime experience to win a gold medal, and had a few solid games there as well, including their semifinal against Serbia, but again, he looked nowhere close to the MVP winner that he has been accustomed to playing like. There was some optimism that a few months of rest between then and the beginning of the regular season would be enough for him to return to form, but this year, Embiid's knee soreness has flared up pretty much all year long. He hasn't been able to play more than 4 games in a row at all this season, and the knee struggles eventually got to a point that it became clear that playing on it would only make things worse, so now he is officially shut down for the rest of the season, exploring his options for treatment, and all of this combined leaves the Sixers in a pretty bleak spot. Embiid just signed a massive Supermax contract extension in the offseason, and it's already starting to look like his days of dominance are numbered. Paul George is in year 1 of a 4-year Supermax contract and looks more focused on social media engagement, and the team currently sits in 12th place in the Eastern Conference standings. The craziest part of this whole mess, though, is that continuing to disappoint and rack up losses is actually the only potential saving grace they have left, which means we have finally arrived at the climax that I was referring to in the beginning of the video. As we all know, the NBA Draft Lottery offers every team at the bottom of the standings a chance at landing a top 4 pick, with the ping pong balls deciding their fates in the drawing. This is an absolutely loaded draft class this year, filled with potential stars, explosive athletes, and guys projected to contribute in a big way for a very long time, so this is the perfect time for the team to be having a down year. The problem for the Sixers, though, is that they owe their first-round pick to Oklahoma City if it does not land in the top 6, due to the protection placed on it when it was traded away, and as one would have it, the Sixers currently have the 6th worst record in the NBA. They are literally right on the fringe of keeping or losing their pick, so at this point in the year, it is absolutely in their best interest to continue losing. The Sixers have just enough talent to win games here and there. The 10 seed for the play-in tournament is technically still within reach, with it just being 3 games back, and the basketball is played by real humans with incentives to play their best of their abilities for the sake of proving their worth and working their way up the ladder in the long run, so convincing a team like this to tank is not an easy thing to do, but lucky for them, they've been pretty bad even while trying their hardest to win, so a few tweaks could solidify their ability to hold on to their pick at the end of the year. For one, Paul George's knee has been bothering him all season, and the team could shut him down to allow him to spend more time recovering. Tyrese Maxey sprained his back and is dealing with an injury in his hand, causing him to miss the last few games, and desperate times call for desperate measures, so finding any excuse to let your best players take time off is the goal here for a team trying to tank competitively, so they could be very cautious with Maxey's return as well. With Embiid, Maxey, and George all out, this allows the role players like Quentin Grimes, Gershon Yabusele, and Kelly Oubre to continue playing as hard as possible to drive up their own individual value, while also realistically not being a good enough lineup to win many games, and the more losses they rack up right now, the better. If the Sixers are able to secure a top 6 pick and have a chance at landing one of this year's studs, that could drastically change the future of this franchise from being bleak to genuinely being able to offer a light at the end of the tunnel. I personally think this year's draft has a clear-cut top 6 prospects, and then the talent drops off a bit to the next tier, with those top 6 players being Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Kasparis Jakuchonis, and Trey Johnson, and any of them would give the Sixers a brighter future. Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain are an incredible backcourt to build around for the future already, so in an ideal world, the Sixers could somehow land someone like maybe Ace Bailey and his elite shot-making skills, or VJ Edgecombe and his unreal explosiveness, along with his budding shot creation, and as I mentioned earlier, you never know how the ping-pong balls will go, so they could end up with the number 1 pick somehow and land Cooper Flagg to give them a foundational franchise pillar to retool around, and his presence would make it a hell of a lot easier to stomach potentially selling low on Paul George or even Joel Embiid if it got to that point. If the Sixers are not able to get any of those names, the next season will likely be a lot of the same. It'll be harder for them to convince players like Quentin Grimes and Gershon Yabusele to re-sign with them if the future of the team is so clearly bleak, with both of those players set to hit free agency, and another long period of rebuilding would then be in their future as their salary cap continues to be tied up by 2 oft-injured stars. Cooper Flagg is somehow not out of reach for this team, but realistically, any top 6 pick keeps the Sixers afloat in the long run and gives them some semblance of a future. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the Sixers' future moving forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.